something about going home that makes you face yourself. I don't know if it's looking at your parents, seeing the mirror that you grew up with as a kid, seeing Tupperware containers. I don't know what it was. It was really just yogurt, empty yogurt jars. That never have yogurt in them, right? Never have yogurt. It's like a gangster with a violin case. It's a gun. You don't know what's going on. I'm sitting there with my parents, and I was finally forced to face it. Like, is this what their firstborn child had become? In the 1970s, when my parents got together, the rule of the day was arranged marriage. It was all the rage back then. And that was really the only way Indians got married. And arranged marriage is kind of a spectrum, but suffice it to say that two families got together, one had a son, one had a daughter, and they put them together, and oftentimes the bride and groom wouldn't even meet until the wedding day, and that's the way it would work. And arranged marriage has always been extremely fascinating to me as a concept, because you marry somebody you don't know and you start a family. Like, I'm supposed to make people with this stranger? You know, I have some friends I wouldn't make cake with. You know, like it's wow. And the very small percentage of non-arranged marriages were called love marriages. Love marriages. Love marriages. And my parents had a love marriage back in 1972. It was kind of an arranged marriage as well, because my dad arranged to become a completely different person after they got married. But the weird thing is that was very ironic, because my dad used to be quite the bohemian. They actually eloped. My parents eloped, which I love, because it's the only thing I can think of that's both romantic and cheap. But my dad actually, when he was dating my mom, my mom was sitting for her exams in India, as they say, and my dad dressed up as a proctor and slipped her a love note during the exam. My dad had some serious game. That was pretty amazing. But the thing is, my parents, as progressive as they are, and they kind of dated, but they don't really understand dating on a gut level like my generation does, right? I mean, you know that movie preview guy, if he came on right now and he was like, in a world with no dating. That's most of the planet, right? That's the eastern half of Earth where most people live. Dating is a very westernized concept. I mean, I actually think we might be better off if there were no dating. I mean, think about it. It may just be easier to get along. It's kind of like recently where Google decided your inbox is now divided into 3 primary social promotions. I woke up one day and all of a sudden I was in this new relationship with my inbox. Apparently you can switch it back, but I kind of like an arranged inbox, so don't tell my parents. And so that's the way it was. My parents didn't really understand dating, and that's the thing, because in India, dating is not a very common thing. I mean, maybe your friend in New Delhi or Bombay dates, but he or she lives in a city. Like 80% of Indians live in the villages where there is no dating, and dating is certainly not universal even in the big cities. So mostly boys and girls, guys and girls, hang out in groups, but if they're doing the one-on-one thing, that's really serious. So my parents did not understand my friend zone problem at all, because I hung out with girls one-on-one all the time. I would bring them home. They met Shivani, and they were like, oh, my dad was like, what about Shivani? And I'm like, well, I mean, Shivani, yeah, she tells me she has the blast when she's with me, and she tells me that I'm cute and smart and funny and nice, and that I'll be a wonderful father someday, but it's not like she likes me. And that makes sense to our generation. They didn't get that at all. They didn't get that at all. They didn't understand. So that made no sense to them whatsoever with Shivani, but they really want me to be with an Indian girl. And, dude, I get it. But then, why did you leave India? Right? I mean, you left the most target-rich environment to find Indians. I mean, and you moved to Ohio? Find an Indian girl? Like, I mean, you know, you probably took family trips. I'm sure we would take family trips. My 2 parents in the front, 3 brothers in the back, and invariably, 10 minutes into the trip, one of us had to go to the bathroom, right? And my dad would be like, why didn't you go at home? There were 4 bathrooms at home. Why didn't you go at home? Now I know how my dad feels. There were 500 million Indian women in India. Why did you move to Ohio? Now, they not only want me to marry an Indian girl, they want me to marry a Punjabi girl. Now, I'm Punjabi, and Punjabis, I don't know if we have any Punjabis here tonight, but Punjabis are usually the soldiers of India, unless you were 5'6" and 100 pounds, then you become a comedian. But they want me to be with a Punjabi girl, and you know, the thing is, my dad, that poor man, he wants to carry on the bloodline, the family name, and he has 1 brother, and that brother had 1 daughter. And she got married and changed her name to Christensen, just to rub it in. And the my dad had 3 boys, and I'm sure he was like, done deal. Like, in the pen. Got it, you know? Then Rakesh turns out to be gay.
Nice.
And Vikas dates only white girls. And not that they can't both take the namesake and run with it. I mean, 14 states gay marriage, it's fine. They could totally do it. But my dad is kind of into the purity thing. So he's like, there will be no pure Satyal Punjabis from here on out. You know? So it's on me now. And I guess with my brothers, like Vikas decided that he saw my parents' marriage and decided that he wanted no part of it. And so I guess Rakesh decided he really doesn't want it. I'll just date a man. So it's on me to carry on the Satyals. And I figured out a loophole, though. I don't need to get married and have kids. I can just get super famous, and then Satyal will live on forever. Right now, that seems more likely. But, I mean, 2 sold-out shows, come on. But I do want to be with an Indian girl. I mean, tonight, exception, whoever comes up to me. The point is I want to be with an Indian girl. I get the whole cultural similarity thing. I feel a little bit closer to Indian girls. I get it. And then my mom, she busts out with, well, we can go to India and get you a girl. And that's probably why Indian guys are so cocky, right? Because we've got 500 million options half of them. Right? The age thing, they're all over there. Yeah, man, we can be cocky. And that sounds manly. That sounds plunderous. I mean, we'll drive our ships to new lands, return with a young lass, mateys. I mean, that sounds like really manly. I would totally want to do that. But the reality is the math is getting a little bit scary for me. I mean, I'm 37. I always thought when I was 23 I'd get married when I was 25, and then I was 25, and it was 28, and I was 28, and it was 30, and I was 33, and it was 35, and I'm 37, and now I'm thinking, oh, 40, I'll get married. It's like the fiscal cliff. It's just I think the real deadline for marriage is death. I mean, that's probably... At that point, you stop obsessing about being single. I mean, so what? Because we are all buried alone. I'm getting cremated anyway. So but you know, the math that really gets scary and sad is I want my kids to know my parents. I do. My parents, as many jokes as I tell about them, are awesome people. And I really would be sad for my kids if they didn't know them. And I think about my own continuous memory. Like, what was your first memory of childhood? And you know, when did you start remembering things? And then when did it you remembered everything? And to me, I was 10. And so my youngest kid is going to have to be 10. And I want 3 kids. And I'm 37 and I have 0. So you know, that's all right. And I want to have them 2 years apart, and that's probably more up to my wife than to me. But even if I meet her this year, we start having kids in a year or 2. 2 years plus 6 plus 10, that's 18 years. My parents need to stay alive and functional for 18 or more years. This part, everybody gets depressed because you're like, oh, me too. You're a dick. Take your math and get out of here.